allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have Luke on the phone as there is COVID in his house. Not sure, Eileen's probably en route. So if someone has a pen and wants to take notes, otherwise I'll figure it out. But-
I will.
Okay, great, thank you.
I drank too long.
So we have, any changes to the agenda? Probably not because it's so short. All right.
You're not streaming it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't know
There's a pen.
why. It's not storming out, is it?
No, but I had snowflakes today.
That's cool.
Did you get a copy of the minutes?
I did not
Last
check.
minute?
I didn't.
Okay, all right, so
Oh,
I
wait,
made
what was the date on those?
November 16th. There she is.
Oh, there she is.
Hello.
I think,
Hi, you.
Mary?
I've got our last minutes, but I don't have the agenda for today.
Oh, okay. All right, so Eileen, we've started, Luke is on the phone, there's COVID in his family. So he's the silent voice, he's the Charlie for our angels. And Neil was taking minutes, he's got like 2 lines that we just started.
But I need this back because it has the key to the kingdom on it.
So we were up to the point of accepting the minutes, and it sounds like we might probably need to make a copy of this.
No, I think I read those.
You did read those?
Yes, I did read those, and I
Okay, do we have
will
a motion to accept the minutes?
So,
give you a motion to accept the
Okay.
minutes.
second.
Second, great. Any amendments? No? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, great. All right, so my agenda is actually on my phone, which is not here right now, but, the big things we have are, okay, thank you. We do have mail for the first time. I have not opened it yet. I suspect, if you guys could, I'll start opening it. We probably need to make a photocopy for y'all, so, 'cause I have no idea what it is, but. Oh, thank you, you're awesome. And it's yeah, this is my only communication. It's... Okay, so we have our very first inquiry request. Okay. I think, first thing I need to do is make a copy, so y'all have one, and I'm gonna take a picture for Luke. You want just the details? Let me see if I can zoom this in as much as possible. Send it by email. First time you get the details.
Did we approve this? Or did we make changes in it, or it's
We
still?
made changes and approved it with the changes to be posted.
Were all of these kinds of things included? This is the pedantic version.
I believe, yeah.
Okay.
I think.
And I think I better go online and check it.
I would strongly recommend.
If you guys read through this, I'm gonna figure out how I can send Luke a copy while I'm on the phone with Luke.
Okay.
picture, Luke. I just don't want to drop you when I send it. You know what, I bet you I can,
If you do, you can call right back.
all right, let me, you know what, I can probably,
I'm in front of the computer, so if you want to email it to me.
okay,
I'll
let me do
open
that.
Send it to the previous one, because I'm not set up on the Outlook.
All right, I sent it to the lead.
In Gmail, yeah.
All right, let me know if you get it.
There it is. Got it.
Okay.
Good.
Sideways. But I've got rotate, so there we go.
I'm sure you're a techie, you can just turn your monitor sideways now.
I'm ready when you're ready.
You ready? Everybody else ready? I think I have our process memorized, but I'm gonna dig it out just to make sure. So the fellow who's listening, this is an inquiry, not a complaint. So the first thing we need to do is decide, follow the internal. If it qualifies as an inquiry, and then we have to decide if. This one. Should throw away the old ones. That's a complaint. Request for advice, and then does it meet our standard, right? So our standard is It doesn't hurt anyone's. Okay, so this is the legal one, so. There's no identifying person or party. Do we feel like there's an identifying information that will then cause us not to consider this as an inquiry? That's like the first question.
This is Luke, for my part, I don't see that as a problem, although I do have something of a concern about the nature of this and whether or not it does fall under our purview.
Right, I think that's my concern as well, but, just sort of going through
But as
the,
far as, right, but as far as identifying, I don't see any personally identifying information in here. This is the wrong question.
right, so the first one was, is it identifying, to identifying? Do we have a concern with that, anyone?
No.
And the next one is this under the jurisdiction of the Ethics Committee? And I guess what we could say, for the purposes of transparency, is someone is concerned about if a committee has rules about who's qualified to be on their committee, is it do those restrictions block an elected official from joining said committee? Right. And then the second question was, if there is it up to the Ethics Committee to bring that to the individual's attention? And the second one is no, right? If you have a complaint or concern about someone, you can certainly bring that to us, and, right? Would that be y'all's perspective? Like, we're not policing other committees. I don't.
Well, this is Luke. So I'll say it's not under the ethics code or any of our other documents that talks about us bringing to the attention of someone a potential violation of being elected or
Right.
serving on a committee. Based on the election rules, that's, other than the fairness thing, I suppose you can do an exercise remotely on fairness, but honestly, I think this is not our jurisdiction. It sounds like something that should either go to council or the select board, from my perspective. Over.
Thank you. Eileen's thinking.
It seems like a conflict of interest question to me.
Okay,
That's the framework I have in my head.
okay.
And I, this has come up over and over and over. This one, both here, I think I've heard it, I believe at committee meeting level, and at board meeting level, I've heard this particular one a couple of times. So from my framework, it's, we're loosely being asked, is this a conflict of interest? In that, like, one direction and then flipping it, like, so it's a if and proposition here. Like, so if it exists this way, then wouldn't it exist that way? And I actually have a completely different framework in my head of answering this question.
Okay.
But if I answer the question, it's specific to the ordinance that this particular question is
That
referring
applies
to.
to.
And does that then make this not an inquiry, that becomes more of a complaint?
I don't know.
Yeah. I think the concern is if said committee has a block that says elected officials, you can't be you can't be an elected official for where and be on that committee. That's not what their rules are. So we can't police their rules, right? But if, say they were elected to our board, we can speak to that because we have control over our board. If our board has a person who's on another committee who says they can't have a person who's an elected position, or, like, that would be up to them to say whether they allow that person. But what we can police is what we allow in other committee memberships. And I think, speaking about the Ethics Committee in general, we have a rule that if, and maybe this is what you're getting at, that if I'm on another committee, or I'm on the school board, And the school board won't happen so much because the ethics for the school board happens in another venue. But say I'm on the school board and something about the school comes up, I have to recuse myself. If I don't recuse myself because of a conflict of issues, then I have an ethics complaint against myself. Right? Would that sound accurate?
Well, so when we go back to our litmus test of can we talk about this, did we agree that we can?
Oh, that's fair. Is this something we can talk about?
I would need more homework. I would need to dive into
Yeah?
what the basic complaint or concern is to find out if indeed there is a conflict of interest, and we can advise accordingly.
I guess, yeah, I hear you. I mean, if it was a complaint, for sure, we
Right.
couldn't, if this was a complaint, we could not do it without doing more homework, right?
Correct.
I guess what I'm trying to tease out is the part that's an inquiry, that's,
Doesn't meet our standard to discuss it as an inquiry. Understanding that we're not gonna have, full information because it's coming in
right.
anonymously. And does it meet our standard of being vague enough to be able to read the question and respond? Does it meet that standard? Do we need to encourage the party who sent this to take another bite in writing it in a more non-identifiable way, right? Because these were the
So
guidelines
I do think
set.
we had said that if we could tease out something more general that wasn't identifying, we could discuss it. And I guess that's what I was trying to do, but you're right, I'm putting the cart before the horse. So, is this as a committee, do we feel like this is something we can talk to as written or what we have? Is there something we can discuss at this point? Or should we suggest that something that doesn't identify a particular committee, if they could tease that out, then we could?
Why can't we discuss this? I'm not sure I understand what the problem is.
So is it because they identified a specific committee,
And,
right?
and what's the issue?
Because it says a member of blah, blah, blah did something to do something. At that point, that's identifying. But although that's not the,
That really, that first sentence is really irrelevant.
okay,
The point is that the Finance Committee has a particular rule, and the question is this rule reversible? The Finance Committee
what do you mean
says,
by reversible?
well,
Can
The-
they
the-
waive it?
No.
the Finance Committee has a rule which says, and we have to look at the context, that a member of the Finance Committee who seeks elective office must leave the committee because presumably at the time this was written, they felt there would be a conflict, for example, if John was on the Finance Committee and decided to run for selectman because the Finance Committee approves
Answers
the
to.
selectman's budget, knowing that he was going to run for selectman or actively taking a part as selectman might have influenced his vote on the Finance Committee. In other
Right, my
words, he would have.
concern is, though, we're now policing or trying to understand or teasing out the rules of that committee, right? And so, we don't know. I mean, this says elected office. Elected office to Board of Selectmen is different than to any other committee that's an elected position.
But
right?
we're an
I don't
elected
know that
committee
their
as well.
rules preclude,
The town clerk is an elected position. So if someone on the Finance Committee decided to run for town clerk, then that person would not be eligible to continue serving on the Finance Committee because that person would be voting on the budget of the office for which he was seeking.
right?
He may lose the election, but because there's a possibility he or she could win,
And the only reason I'm letting you
And-
hang out on this is because I know you're in the committee and stuff, but I mean, at this point, we're talking about the rules of that committee and what's allowed and not allowed, and that's beyond my,
But, I want to actually, go ahead, Luke.
So one thing, I'm reading the ethics,
Yeah, I was-
code of ethics right here, and I do find one thing that we may be able to open up the discussion on, and that's under the heading of fairness. Where it says, I promote consistency, equity, and non-discrimination in public agency decision-making, which I base on the merits of an issue, including facts, reasonable, et cetera. The question before us seems directly related to that. Is it fair for this person or this situation, hypothetical situation, would it be fair for this person to serve in this capacity? And if not, would the ethics committee advise them that there was a problem? Right? So I do think that under that, we could discuss it. I still have concerns about jurisdiction, but.
Right. Well, and I think that was,
I'm not opposed to a discussion.
I think, I suspect that's what Eileen was getting at, is this something that is in our purview? That's, but one of the criteria for discussing it is it in our charter. And so how they handle those rules is not in our charter, it's in theirs. However, if you want to talk about fairness, if you have to leave a board in order to run, does that mean a person who is already elected, can they be on a committee? Is that fair? Is that what you're saying, Luke?
What I'm saying is their question seems to be in reference to someone serving on the finance committee with some kind of in violation of a rule about who can run during the year that they seek election.
Yeah.
And that's, so the question in my mind is this a question about ethics, or is it a question about an RSA or a set of rules for another committee? And that's where I'm struggling to make the connection. It seems to me what they're asking about is a technical question on should this person serve on this committee. I'm not sure that either yes or no answer to that question would be an ethical discussion. It would be a rules discussion unless there was a position that someone was doing something, in a conflict of interest to promote themselves or their position or that sort of thing. And I'm not seeing that here.
Right.
So just as an inquiry, I mean, we already know the answer to the second part. That's no, it would not be our job to bring this to the attention of someone, hypothetically. And the first one is, what would we do with that? Would it be a violation? Well, so much more that we'd have to discuss before we could come to that conclusion.
Right, and that gets into the purview of a complaint, right?
Right.
And
right,
before we go
exactly.
any further, do I need to recuse myself? Because I fall into this position. I'm an
Oh.
elected member of the Ethics Committee, and I am a member of the Finance Committee. I was elected first and appointed second.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. Yeah, you probably should recuse yourself. But I don't know if does that mean he needs to leave the room, or does?
No,
he-
I don't have to leave the room, but I
Just-
certainly need
right,
to leave
yeah,
the
I mean,
table.
it's certainly, okay.
Participate in the discussion and vote.
So I want to go back to our beginning, right?
Yes.
Because we painstakingly established a process.
Yes.
So I want to try to be true to it.
Yes.
So there were 3 criteria that we would discuss on. One is if we felt like we could discuss it as written in a way that would not identify, malign, all that kind of stuff. And I think we check the box, like we're all, I believe, I don't want to speak for anyone, that we are in agreement that we're okay with discussing.
Yes,
Yes,
Okay, from that first check mark.
yep,
correct.
The second was time frame.
right, this is
which
current, so,
This is current.
yep,
And then the third is applicability, which is the one that we keep
Right.
circling around.
correct.
From my perspective, I believe, because there's the rule, right? And I went to the town ordinance about the finance committee to read that, because and I almost feel like we should read the inquiry before we go any further.
All right, are you all okay with me reading this out loud? Everybody good? Okay. So it says, recently a member of the Finance Committee resigned when she was appointed to serve on the Select Board. This was in compliance with the Finance Committee ordinance as posted on the town's website. It states, any member of the Finance Committee who seeks local elective office shall be disqualified from serving on the Finance Committee during the duration of that year's budget discussion, which is fair. Wouldn't this also preclude an elected official from seeking a position on the Finance Committee during their elected term? Is this something the Ethics Committee would bring to an individual's attention if they were to serve in such a capacity? And so I had jumped to the second one because it's easier. We are not policing people's behavior. If someone has a complaint or concern, they can bring a complaint, and then we could have the hearing process, right? So I think we're good with that one. The first piece that we sort of keep going around, is it something that we, falls into our jurisdiction, is wouldn't this also preclude an elected official from seeking a position on the Finance Committee? Right?
So, let's, I think for the purposes of discussion, right, we're not gonna weigh in on, I think somebody's asking us, like, how does this work?
How does the,
Meaning, like, how would it be, in our purview to point out somebody's, but like, would we sitting here say, wait a second, you can't do that because that's in violation of the ordinance? That's what I'm
yep,
reading in this, like, wouldn't, because the question is, wouldn't this also preclude an elected official from seeking a position on the Finance Committee during their elected term? So I go back to the ordinance, right? And encourage whoever sent this to read that ordinance. And the other thing I want to encourage that person to do is to look at the year that this ordinance was last amended, which was 2012. And to look at the year that the types of elected officials that existed in 2012 versus that exist currently. I believe the Ethics Committee was created by Warren in 2016. Right? Am I wrong on that?
that's right, yep.
So, when this ordinance was written for the Finance Committee, the Ethics Committee didn't exist. And then, when it did exist, it was a committee, and then it became elected in Warren in 2022, I believe.
Right.
If I follow
The track of
the
it.
track of it. So I don't know that ordinance
Right,
fully reflects our current situation.
right. And in the case of the Finance Committee, because we don't have a budget, there's no, the Finance Committee is not gonna get a Ethics Committee budget
No.
to look at, right? So they might need to update their process. But I keep going back to the question of, is it our job to interpret
No.
their,
So,
go ahead.
Chairperson, I have to express some concerns here. It sounds like we're giving advice on an inquiry to the audience, hoping that the person is out there. And it sounds also like we're entangling the ethics committee structure and creation. I mean, the fact of the matter is if there's an RSA out there, the question is, are people in town obligated to follow a rule, order, a set of bylaws, or whatever? Whenever that was created and whenever the ethics committee was created, aren't an issue, except that in the case that we just came up with, if it was affecting a member of the ethics committee, and that's where I get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because it's just been disclosed that we have somebody that's in this situation on our committee. So I'm not sure, is this question directed at that circumstance, another circumstance? I don't know, and I'm not sure that I should.
Right.
Based on the
Yep.
the vagueness and, and the intentional vagueness of this. But I think that the bottom line, I mean, we can all agree that the officials I hope that we can all agree that the officials in town are obligated to follow the RSAs and the duly adopted rules of the committees on which they serve.
Their policies, their rules, their
Yeah,
guiding
Their
forces,
policies,
for
their
sure.
rules, right. Whatever that is, we can all agree that they're supposed to do that. The question is, for us, if someone potentially has stepped outside of the bounds of those rules in the process of serving on a committee, is that an ethics complaint? Or would that be an ethics complaint? And I think one of the things that occurs to me is, well, the first thing that should happen is this should be addressed, with those committees, because of our other rule that says whoever's bringing something forward must have tried to resolve this, to a reasonable extent with the appropriate bodies. So without having the information specifically about, more about what we're talking about, I think we're starting to wade into dangerous water.
That's fair.
I agree with you,
prefer
Luke.
to just say, is this inquiry something that we can answer, given what we've gotten? We had a discussion about this when we were writing these up, to say, sometimes we're gonna get in some that are vague, and what we would have to do is encourage the person to either file it in the form of a complaint, or give us more clarifying information so that we can help them more
Right.
effectively.
Right.
We want to help direct whoever this is to the appropriate resource, but at this point, it doesn't feel like it's us.
I'd like to add something to
Yeah.
this. I think it would be advisable for the person who submitted the inquiry to go to the chairperson of the finance committee and address it. That would be, and
That would
then
be
if
the-
they go nowhere with it, then they can file a complaint with us and we can manage it from there. Because apparently it sounds like that there is a crossover in the rules, or the behavior in carrying out the rules of the different committees. So being a finance committee, they're not all elected, they're appointed, is that correct?
They are appointed.
They are appointed, and then you have your elected officials, which put them and us as elected officials too, in a different place.
Right.
Where what we have to answer to. So I would advise the person who submitted the inquiry to go to the chair of the finance committee and state their concerns. If they do have somebody who has been appointed to their committee that is an elected official, I realize there are elected officials that are almost overseers, would I say, from the Board of Selectmen that sit in on different committees throughout the town. Is that correct?
Maybe, but I do know that since Neil outed himself, so he is an elected official who was then appointed to the finance committee.
Right.
And so I think you're right. The finance committee are the people who interpret and manage their rules.
Correct.
If they do not get satisfaction and they believe that there is an ethical violation with the interpretation of those rules, certainly a complaint could come to us.
Right.
Just for point of clarification, the town moderator is the person responsible for seating individuals on the finance committee, so I think that's a,
Right, so
Okay,
but
good.
if the town moderator seats someone, so it's up to the town moderator to interpret their rules
Yeah.
and in good faith and ethically seat those people. And if someone has a concern with how he has seated that board, and it is an ethical complaint, that they could put a complaint against that person, against the town moderator, as opposed to the person being seated. Is that what we're saying?
Is the question, though, really,
where do you bring it?
when this person goes forward with their concern, rather than go to the Board of Selectmen, they should go to the town moderator? Or rather than go to, the finance committee, they should go to the town moderator, since that's the appointing official?
We're trying to, I think Suzanne was talking about referring the individual back to the committee, chair of the committee in question.
Correct.
And I just noted that the process for appointment for the finance committee is through the town moderator.
Right, and I took your note to heart, and my question then would be, if that is the case, if that is the official who fills these positions, wouldn't the concern be best directed to them first rather than the finance committee chair?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
right, yeah, that's good advice. I just, so if that person does not get satisfaction and they feel something is ethical, is it then directed at the person who's seated or the person who seated them?
Well,
No.
my
Both.
opinion would be, it wouldn't be directed at anyone that would describe a situation
Well, if you put a complaint in, you have to put a complaint against someone. Right?
Oh, I see. Well, they would be the appointing official. I assume that they would say that the appointing official was not compliant with the rules for making that appointment.
Right,
Take it from there, but
right.
again, that's just speculation, because again, we're
Discussing it.
Right.
got a paragraph of fairly vague
Right.
information here.
So I guess what we can advise on is we aren't sort of policing the other committees' rules and processes and seating the nuances of them, because we're not experts in that area. Those committees police themselves. So that's the second one again, but, and then Suzanne rightly pointed out that you're supposed to exhaust all avenues, so she's suggesting to go back to those other committees. And if you have a specific concern about a specific person, then that would be a complaint that we could take on. Any other thoughts on this?
I think to have them contact the town moderator if they were not aware of the circumstances, they can be made aware as to the concerns by this individual who filed the inquiry. And then if there's no resolution, then I believe we would be the next step.
If it's ethical, if the
Correct.
complaint is about ethics, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
And so also what follows is if the person has already made that step and brought this concern to that body and does still not have satisfaction, they could still now file
A complaint,
Correct.
ethics committee.
right, right. If you've already exhausted all avenues, then complaint would be your next step if you believe there's an ethical violation. And I'm sorry, but, and it's frustrating because we don't know the nuances of these laws, nor should we try to be the experts on every other committee. But, you know, if you feel there's an ethical complaint, if you fill it in, send it to us, and then we'll go through the whole hearing process. Hi, Chief. So, all right, so I think that is it for the, here, have a seat, join us. So that, I think that's the inquiry advice. Neil, you can rejoin us, I think, as we're done that topic. This is a really short agenda because the Finance Committee is busily working, and so they're gonna start at 7 o'clock. So our meeting is short. I did want to talk about, everybody has new email. I know I logged in. Does anybody else use the new email?
No.
Okay. So the non-retired people are up to date on their new email. So Luke is gonna come in to Naomi and he'll get his password so he can get set up. Neil is gonna try to log into Outlook.com and make it work. Naomi's gonna fix Suzanne's, misspelling of her name, and hopefully she'll be up.
Now, once this is, if I've logged in and it's working for me, may I close
Yes.
my other account?
Yep, yep. I'm gonna keep, until I know everyone's on there, I'll keep sending email to both
both.
places,
Thank
but
you.
once it's done, if you wanna close those out, that's great.
Great.
All right, and then the one topic that I should have amended to the agenda is, our other meeting scheduled for this month is the 20th, which is like 5 days before Christmas. It's peak budget season, and we once again only have an hour, which is, as you can see, is a very short period. I would propose that we cancel that meeting and start on our monthly agenda, monthly meeting schedule in the new year. I don't know what people's thoughts are on that.
I agree.
If it's Wednesday, I can assure you that the Finance Committee is going to be very busy in January,
True,
okay?
true, yep.
Not in February, but in January.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay.
So this is Luke. I'm fine with skipping a meeting mostly because I'll be out of the country.
Okay. All right, well, let's do that. Go ahead.
I will say that we're gonna have to work something out with the other boards that, you know, I understand that this is a crunch time, but
We'll have to reserve 2 hours.
have to have some room or adjust schedules in some way.
Yep,
Still get the whole education piece remaining.
so also, then, your homework then for the rest of December, so Naomi, we're gonna cancel the meeting on the 20th. Y'all give me the days of the week of the month that work for you coming in January, and we'll start a new schedule for the new year. If Wednesdays are just not the right day, if people have a better day, that's fine by me. So send me what days of the week work better.
Wendy's problem with the town,
The,
it's Wednesdays?
the
because
finance
Brandon
committee
is-
during budget season is meeting at, I guess, 7 every Wednesday.
Right, so when we were originally setting up picking meetings, we
Yeah.
went back and forth on days that would work for us.
Right.
We found out that doesn't work because of the town schedule. So I guess what we should do before we all throw out dates
Fair.
is
Ask
find out
Naomi what days
are
work in
available.
January, yep.
And if we could have a consistent day rather than,
Sure. I definitely want to have a consistent day. I think it's better for reporting out and for people just knowing when we are.
May I suggest that we ask Naomi to do that much later in the month,
Yes,
after the various committees have sort of
correct,
set their
because I know you
schedules?
guys are all
Yep.
going, yep. So what we'll do is, how about the week of the 20th, maybe? I'll check in with Naomi and see if we can get a sense of what days are available. And then we'll start meeting again in the new year, and we'll start working on the education piece.
Sounds good.
Sound good?
excellent. I would also request that we add to the agenda for the next meeting, this issue of occasional absenteeism or attending remotely is what I should say.
Oh, attending remotely, yes.
Right, and get that into our processes so that we know how to deal with that. moving
Sure, that's fair. I will add that. Okay, anybody else have new topics for next time?
I just wanted to say I attended the 91A training.
Oh, yeah,
That was supported by the town and with town council, which I believe, Naomi, if I'm correct, it's posted in YouTube.
It's not yet.
Not yet, it will be.
I need 48 hour, 9 day.
But
It
it
will
was
be.
very good. I highly recommend sitting through it. It was very comprehensive, and I thought informative, because there have been some changes in the
Any pearls
statute.
of wisdom you'd like to share?
Be
Key takeaway.
be ever transparent. I mean, think about, there are areas that we do need to, go into non-public meeting, but other than that, if there's an opportunity to be transparent, take it. And so that was the overarching takeaway that I had.
excellent.
Good enough.
All right, we don't do a motion to close, right, just close, so we'll, if there's no other topics, we'll close out a little bit early, let the finance committee come on in, and
And-
then we'll be meeting in January.
And you will
Yes.
call the meeting once you have our dates?
Yep,
Okay.
I will call it, so I'll reach out to y'all in 2 weeks and get a sense of what's available, and then we'll start our schedule for the new year.
Perfect.
Okay, all right,
Sounds great.
all done, we'll see you guys in the new year.
Very good. Happy holidays.